Today, let's talk about the top Yankees primed for a breakout this spring. We'll give you our picks on today's Locked On Yankees.
You are Locked On Yankees, your daily New York Yankees podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everyone, this is Stacey Gatsoulias, the host of Locked On Yankees, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm joined by my producer, Steve Granado.
What's up?
What's up? We're going to be talking about some guys that you may have heard of or may not have heard of, and it'll be fun. We have some things to discuss about spring training. But before we get into it, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and do it today to get started. So we're going to do position players and pitchers that we think are going to break out. And none of them are any of the main guys on the team. We picked some minor leaguers. We picked some journeymen. So it's an interesting contrast of people, I think. Although my first pick is someone that everyone knows. I picked Jasson Dominguez. Now, I don't expect him to make the big club. Obviously, he's too young and the Yankees aren't going to bring a 20-year-old up. But I really hope that he opens some people's eyes. And he has already so far in the small window of spring training games that we've had so far. And it's pretty cool to watch how everyone is reacting to him. But he could be a lot of fun to watch in the future if the Yankees stick with him. And I think they're sticking with him because they've had some opportunities to trade him or include him in something, and they haven't done that yet. Him, Volpe, or Peraza. They're really holding on to those three. And I think that he could be a main contributor to the Yankees at some point. But I think this spring would be fun to watch him break out a bit and show everyone what he's made of.
I think it's important we distinguish here at the top, Stacey.
Mm-hmm.
What is breakout? Like, what in your mind is a breakout? What would, for Jasson Dominguez, yes, that big homer on Saturday in the first game is nice, but what is breakout in your mind?
For him, I think breakout would be giving the Yankees a real problem, almost making him go back, because it's not like, all right, I know he hasn't made it up to the top level of the minors, but there are other guys who started playing young and stuck around, and he could be one of those guys. And I feel like the Yankees never give those guys a chance. Now, I'm not comparing him in any way, shape, or form to Ken Griffey Jr. and Andrew Jones, but those are the two dudes that I think of who were really young when they started and they stuck. And I think breakout for him would be giving the Yankees a problem when they're thinking about the outfield and who to keep and who to let go. That kind of a thing.
There's already a problem there.
Right.
And that's my first pick.
Mm-hmm.
It's Estevan Florial. There's a problem there with what the Yankees have to decide to do. And make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're going to have a whole episode on that tomorrow, by the way. An entire episode dedicated to Estevan Florial. But I wanted to touch on it today. He had a really good middle part of the summer with us in Scranton. Look, like, it was so hard in our minds to justify him being there at the time.
Right.
So I'm curious to see what the Yankees do with him. Does he get that fourth outfield spot?
Yeah.
He's battling with Hicks. Like, they seem pretty hell-bent on Hicks right now. So does Flo get that? And we're talking about, what does breakout mean? It's the strikeouts for Florial. That's really what's holding him back. He's striking out at pretty consistent rates, like 30 to 35% strikeout rate, every level he's been to. That has like genuine numbers attached to it. Right. So I'm curious to see what that number would have to be down to, or what he would have to give in exchange for that strikeout rate. The power numbers when he hits it is like yikes. Like, he hit like a 450-footer last year. Like, he has the pop, but I think it's the consistency of the pop without the strikeouts, or if he has the consistency of the pop with the strikeouts, I think they can justify it. But I think it's like, dude, we can't see you hitting 25 bombs in the show over a full season, 25 plus, to justify this 34, 33% strikeout rate. That's the problem for Flo. He's fast. He's really improved in the outfield. And I would love to see him like just have a really, really strong spring to make it harder for them to be like, dude, we can't DFA this guy because remember he's out of options.
Oh,
so, again, we'll have a full episode on that tomorrow. But just as a preface, that's my pick for one of the breakouts of spring. Hey, thanks for checking out Locked On Yankees. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're trying to hit 2K by opening day, and statistics show about a third of our viewers aren't actually subscribed to the channel. So make sure to hit that sub button, and you'll get more content like this.
Yeah. And the other guy I picked is another outfielder because, why not? But Elijah Dunham, he's a sleeper. He has at least 4 guys ahead of him in the pecking order in the outfield. But he hit .248 at Somerset with a .797 OPS. That was in 2022. And he actually played in the Venezuelan Winter League and 14 games there, had a 300 average with an 883 OPS in those 14 games. And while he was in AA, he split his time in the outfield between right field and left field. And again, there's so many outfielders. I was even looking at the non-roster invitees, and I'm like, there are a lot of outfielders here. And I know the Yankees kind of want to look for certain people, but I just thought that was amusing how many there are.
Yeah. Dunham hasn't played in AAA yet. But yeah, so I bet he starts in Somerset, potentially Scranton, potentially maybe, but he'll likely start in Somerset. Same with a guy that I picked for first base, Tyler Hardman. Maybe a name you have not heard of, Tyler Hardman. He had an incredible August. 23 games, 8 bombs, 26 driven in. He hit .305, ended up being a South Atlantic League All-Star with Hudson Valley, got called up to Somerset. Like, Hardman really started to make a name for himself towards the end of the season, especially. And he really, I think what was really impressive about him was his launch angles, the distance, and just the exit velos were really and the sound of the pop off the bat was really starting to get people going like, whoa, who's this kid? So I'm keeping my eye on Tyler Hardman. I don't think that's a guy, we're not saying that Hardman's going to break camp. That's not going to happen. Same with Elijah, same with Dominguez, same with, maybe not with Flo. Flo's maybe the guy that you're like, I'm rooting for Florial. I'm really rooting for him. He's such a nice dude. He's such a professional. I don't want to get too into it again. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Hit that subscribe button. But yeah, I'm also picking Tyler Hardman just because that pop is really interesting to me. I'm very interested in Tyler Hardman's pop. 8 bombs in 23 games, in the dog days too. That's a really nice time to get hot. And that's interesting. It's very interesting. I don't think he's backing up Rizzo anytime soon.
Right.
He's got a full season of AA and probably a full season of AAA still to go. But just because we're picking them, these guys too, don't forget, these are potential trade pieces. If you want to up in different parts of the system, these are potential trade guys to keep your eye out for. So maybe not just break out immediate impact Yankees, but break out, make a name for themselves. And then that turns into something later.
So we went through our position player picks, and up next, we're going to talk about pitchers that we think are going to break out. The midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scorers and threes drained. Now, just so you know, the Knicks are plus 4,200 for the Eastern Conference title, which that's not going to happen. But that's a pretty big payout if, you wanted to really go crazy and think, hey, maybe they could do this. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. So it's time for our pitcher picks. And my first guy, Yankee fans are going to know because He may have only pitched 10 and 2/3 innings with the Yankees, but he was a guy that whenever he showed up, you thought to yourself, him again? And it's Ryan Weber. He's a journeyman, he's been around a long time. And for some reason, the Yankees did they release him and bring him back? Is that what happened? What was the technical thing that they kept doing to him?
So they designate him for an assignment.
Right.
Over
Okay.
and over again. He would, in theory, this is how it works. You get DFA'd, then would talk to their agent to get feelers from around the league.
Right.
And then come to a conclusion rather to accept that DFA and go back to Scranton, or not accept it and become a free agent. Every single time, all 3,000 of them that happened last year, he accepted every single time and went back to Scranton. He would join us for like a week or two, and then he'd disappear, and we're like, oh, guess where Ryan is?
He's at Yankee Stadium again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just feel like, anytime they needed him to come up and pitch, he did. He just showed up. He was there. And I kind of, he's been around for a while, and I'm kind of hoping that he has kind of like a Lucas Lecky breakout where he becomes like this reliable guy out of the pen for them. It's a long shot, but you never know. I mean, no one expected what Lucas Lecky did. I mean, he didn't pitch in the majors for like 5 years, and he came up, and even in that preseason, I said how I really was rooting for him to make the roster, and he did. And I thought that was really great. So I would love that for Ryan Weber.
Yeah, I really liked Webby last year. I really did. And when he came down with us in SWB, like, it was nice. It was just like reliable. I think that's what was nice about him. So for breakout for him, I'm going, like turning that corner, becoming like, doing a little bit more there for you. Not necessarily just like, oh, the reliable guy, he'll eat up innings. Like, it would be nice to see him turn a bigger, make a bigger turn, I should say, into becoming a guy. My first pick for pitcher breakout is kind of in the same line. Jimmy Cordero. I really like Jimmy Cordero for not just reliability purposes. Like, he was reliable for the Rail Riders, but he was also like electric for the Rail Riders. Like 2019 with the White Sox, really good. Best year in the show. He's been in the show a couple of times. Once Greg Weissert got the call, Weissert, who was like the top closer in the International League last year, he left and went, crap, great. Now we lost our closer. But it was a natural slide in for Jimmy Cordero, and he filled those shoes so well. And he attacks you differently than a Greg Weissert does. Jimmy Cordero is just brute force, and I really liked that about him. We saw him pitch already in spring, and if I had to pick a bullpen piece that I think can break camp, if you're looking for the Aroldis Chapman replacement, if you're looking for a setup man, I don't think you should sleep on Jimmy Cordero. I really liked him. He's a bulldog. He fights, and he's like menacing. Like, he's a scary big pitcher, and I like him. I like him a lot because of that. So that's why he's like my bullpen pick to hit, if you will.
Yeah. Now, my second choice is Jhony Brito. That's how you say his name, right? Because I've heard
Brito.
his name. Yeah. He was pitcher of the week in May in the EAS. He split time between Somerset and Scranton in 2022, and he did pretty well. He had a combined 2.91 ERA, 98 strikeouts to 35 walks. He's not one of those highly touted guys, but I feel like it's the old cliche. You can never have enough pitching. And with the way pitchers get injured and stuff, I feel like he could be another option for breakout performer, because he does have experience at Scranton, maybe not as much as you want, but
I don't think he would break. He'll start with the Rail Riders. He turned into like our number 2 last year. We had a weird end of the year post deadline. Lost so much. Like, JP Sears was gone. We lost Ken Waldachuk. We lost Hayden Wisniewski. Like, all these moves really hurt the Rail Riders. So it's hard to say like who was the 1, who was the 2. It turned out essentially to be Matt Crook, the 1, and then Jhony Brito, the 2. Essentially, it kind of changed week to week.
Yeah.
I like
almost
Jhony.
picked Crook.
I like Crookie too. Crookie is a little inconsistent, but his stuff when he throws it reminds me a lot of Jared Weaver.
Mm.
Like not gonna blow you away. I'm like that's the problem when he doesn't pinpoint.
Oh, yeah.
That's when he gets into issue because he doesn't have the stuff to just blow it by you.
Right.
But that's what I like about Crookie. But Jhony Brito is a little more in that like can potentially blow it by you. He's like mid 90s with good secondary stuff. I think he needs to develop a couple more secondary pitches. But I do like Jhony Brito. Very quiet kid, very like focused and he nose to the grindstone, kind of just like silent assassin type. So I like that pick. I almost picked Jhony Brito too. I just didn't think he does not have a legitimate shot to be the 5.
Right.
Like, because that if you're looking at the starting front, like the 5 is like the only thing that's open right now, right?
Right.
And outside of Schmidt and Herman, like what are we talking about? Like it's them two, which we detailed on a previous show.
Mm-hmm.
My last pick was Richard Fitz. Kind of a mixed bag. So I'm looking for him to like shine a little bit here in the spring. Not a guy to break camp. Struggled in Tampa. He was like otherworldly in Hudson Valley. Like it was kind of bizarre. Like he really did not pitch well in the Florida State League, but as soon as he got to the South Atlantic League, it was like a completely different guy. 2 earned runs in his last 33 innings of work. MLB has him at number 29 in the system. He carried a perfect game against Hickory all the way into the 8th inning last year. He got pitcher of the week at one point. Like for whatever reason, couldn't pitch in the Florida State League, but as soon as he got to the South Atlantic League, he pitched really, really well. So that's my last like minor league breakout candidate where, oh, who's Richard Fitz? Like, I think you might be thinking that come opening day, like, oh, okay, Richard Fitz he got sent back to Hudson Valley. Maybe he starts in Somerset. Doubt it. Probably starts in Hudson Valley. But I would be like, oh yeah, Richard Fitz. I'm gonna keep that guy on my radar moving forward. I think that's where everybody should be.
So this is a pretty interesting group of guys that we picked. And I think that, I don't mean to disparage my fellow Yankee fans, but I'm the same way. When it comes to the minor league players, some of the names, the big names, but there are certain names in this group that we picked that, some of the audience are going to be very curious about. And I kind of like that we did that because now they're going to be looking these guys up and trying to figure out, oh, let's see what these guys can do. And maybe they'll start paying attention to the minor leagues and think, hey, if something happens during the regular season, they can say to themselves, hey, maybe the Yankees can go to Scranton and get this guy to come up.
Yeah, and I think if we're talking on the pitching front, your Ryan Weber was that guy last year. And I know, or I would figure, he probably doesn't want to be that guy this year. He'd probably much rather just be there. He's been in the majors, I wouldn't say consistently, but he's had a good taste of the majors throughout his career. He was with like a million teams in 2021. I believe he even played overseas in 2021 to start the year. But yeah, like Ryan Weber, Jimmy Cordero, kind of like those fringe guys. Like you're like right there, and you're the first call. Right, that was also Greg Weissert last year. Like he was playing so well that it was like we can't ignore this kid. Like he was pitching so well, and his slider was working so good. So I was really happy that Greg got the call last year. But yeah, I mean, you detailed Jhony Brito, Richard Fitz, Elijah Dunham, Jasson Dominguez. Like those are guys that aren't in that camp. But I think Flo is also that guy on the defensive side. But he'd have to accept that DFA. That's the tricky part about that. So the big names, like you mentioned. But there are some guys that I think that's why I love spring training. That's the good part of spring training. Like, yes, oh, wow, Aaron Judge hit a home run. Like, who cares? He did it in March. It doesn't matter. But the more exciting pieces here, your shortstop battle, your 5-spot battle, who rounds out that bullpen? Who's going to be the go-to guy? Because that's what these games are for. Are guys battling out who's going to be the setup man? Who's going to be the seventh inning guy? Who's your long reliever? Because those jobs are essentially up in the air almost every year. You
Right.
never know. It's who's performing at that time, and it's time to perform now. That's why I'm keeping my eye, especially, and I like your Weber pick. I liked your Weber pick. I liked that a lot. Kind of forgot about Ryan Weber just a little bit. But I like that. And I think he could totally be that swing man. You know, someone's got to skip a day, call up Webby, or, oh, someone went down, Sevy went down for 2 weeks. We got to call up Weber to make 3 spot starts, that type of thing. That's what Weber is. And I think he wants to be more. So he kind of has to prove it. So I'm just interested in those guys and see, like, hey, man, you're kind of, it's time to put up. It's time to put up. Right now is the time. And if not, those are also, potential trade pieces.
Right. Now, it's funny you mentioned the people fighting for jobs, because Aaron Judge did a very quick interview with the Yes Network the other day. And he was basically, like, the way he made it sound, he was like, yeah, we're all fighting for jobs here. And I thought to myself, well, you're not, but I think that's sweet that you said that. But it's true. We still don't know who's going to be the left fielder. We don't know who's going to be the fourth outfielder. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff. And, the bullpen's a lot different. You don't have Chad Green anymore. Aroldis Chapman is gone. You have some of the guys from last year. Michael King's coming back. And, there's a chance for some of these guys to or a couple of them to sneak in there and be like, hey, pick me. I'll be your setup guy. So I think that's something to look out for, because I know a lot of people think, oh, it's spring training, who cares? But as you said, it's about those guys who are trying to make the team. Like, sure, it's great to see guys hit bombs like Giancarlo Stanton and Judge, and they'll be playing in Wednesday's game. So we'll have things to talk about later in the week. But this is what spring training really is about. It's about those fringe guys that are trying to make the team, or just trying to make an impression for later down the road. So tomorrow, speaking of one of those guys, we are going to talk about Estevan Florial and what the Yankees are going to do with him. Thanks for making Locked On Yankees your first listen. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball. Win your league by listening to Matt and Dom every day as they bring you the best fantasy draft strategies. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.